Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Automated Advantage. This week we have Raquel Rosenthal, the CEO of Adopex, on, and we've got some very interesting insights into the digital marketing world and her story about business and leadership and different things like that. So, looking forward to sharing this with everybody. Have a wonderful day. Well, hi, Raquel, and thank you so much for joining us today. If you could just firstly introduce yourself and the name of your company.
My name is Raquel Rosenthal. The name of the company is Adopex, and we're an ad monetization solution for publishers.
That's great, and thank you for doing that, and appreciate the time today. So, every time we get into these conversations with people and I know your story is no, say different in the sense I've been talking to founders of companies, and you've come in to a company for various reasons, but maybe just to start out with, what is the Adopex like market opportunity that somebody saw, and how did it come about, and just start out with that as to maybe why you're in existence today.
Okay, well, I'm a new CEO. I've only been with us since June of this year. But the original founder, about 10 years ago, saw that there was a need in the market. So there's some technical things. If you don't mind, I'll just try to give it as high level as possible. But in the market, publishers, online publishers, digital publishers, let's just say New York Times, Fortune, Forbes, all of these publishers. And I've been in this business for a long time, had to use multiple ad networks to fill their unsold inventory. So the inventory that they couldn't sell themselves, right? So if the New York Times has a sales team and they sell 50% of the inventory, they work with partners outside to fill the rest of it to get as much inventory and advertising in there to monetize their websites. So about 10 years ago, there was a change in the marketplace, and there was something called header bidding that came about, which is programmatic advertising. And the woman who started the company felt that there was a need in the space. So there's a few competitors that are out there who also help monetize publishers, inventory, just to name a few. Freestar, Playwire, Raptive do similar things to us. I think we are unique and special is that we help mid-sized publishers, not the enterprise huge publishers that have bigger budgets, but some of the smaller publishers that don't have the same resources that some of those bigger publishers do sort of understand this ever-changing complex landscape. And the market has evolved, and I can say this, and it's happening faster and faster with the advent of AI. Well, I'm in the digital space now for, wow, since 1999. So it just keeps on speeding up with all of the changes that are happening. And so we help those publishers with a lot of service, expertise, education, um, and resources as well, because it's expensive to run these publishing companies.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to your point is, not even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I mean, the whole market has shifted significantly. And I think I'm curious to know, I'm a little older in life, and I've grown up with newspapers and those types of things. And then online has been a way, but I see how my children um, get the news today. It's completely different. So I'm assuming that that's got to be this constant challenge to stay up with what are people interested in, and how do you attract people to what you're doing, right?
Oh, totally agree. Well, I'll just say because I have I have different different age groups in my family because my husband has kids and then we have kids. So I have teenagers and I have kids in the late 20s and 30s. And yeah, I mean, they're not even consuming news and newspapers. They're getting it through their friends and through social media. And there's a lot of information and some misinformation. But, Google keeps on changing their algorithms, Meta keeps on changing their algorithms. And an online publisher really has to provide a lot of value for its readers. So I'll give you a couple of examples. We have a publisher who used to be extremely relevant with younger kids, providing content to them. Well, like you said, some of that has changed. They're now consuming information differently. Well, that publisher hasn't changed how they're um, coming up with their content for that age group. So they've lost traffic over time, right? They haven't made significant changes to how they're doing their content. Um, they haven't tried to increase their subscription base. They haven't tried to evolve with the market. And I think over time, if publishers don't evolve, they don't adapt, especially now with AI and some of the ways that AI is changing how users even get to publishers' websites, um, you're going to see more and more publishers consolidate, go out of business, which isn't necessarily good for us, right?
Mm.
Because with less information out there, if you have less good places to go and get news from, um, it might seem like, oh, it's better because I have less choices. I only have to go to 4 or 5 places, but in actuality, over time, it's not going to be quite as good for, I think, the consumer.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing is, so again, I think COVID started this for me. I, s- I stopped watching a lot of news and looking for channels. And interesting, you talk about your family. I have a daughter who's almost 30, and I have a son who's in his 20s. He's in the military, and she's borderline hippie, and they get their news from multi different channels. And what's interesting to me is they each come up with their own perspective on how they want to interpret the news. But what I do find interesting is that ultimately it kind of brings, at some point in time, it brings it together, and it's, you just got to weed out the stories. In fact, I was telling my wife earlier, I read something earlier, and I said I don't know if this is true, but if it is, this is a kind of interesting news story, which I think is just one of those things in today's day and age that, how do you disseminate what's real and what's not real? You've got to look at multiple sources, in my opinion.
Yes, yes. Well, our publishers they're struggling because there's a lot of different trends that are happening from a business standpoint in online publishing. Well, one, there's the disruption with AI, and um, and when the way that you used to do a search through Google, and you would be able to then see what it was that you were looking for. So let's say I'm just looking for um, something for retail. And I'd go through and I'd say, oh, that looks good. I'm going to go to that website. Well, now with AI and all of the information is just coming up within the space, so they give you a summary of what's happening, right? So now me as the user doesn't even have to go to that website.
Mm.
Now, how does that affect an online publisher? So if I'm the New York Times, well, I have a subscription base, and most people are going to go to me, right? But if I'm a smaller publisher, if I'm the Dallas Morning News, or if I'm the Minnesota Star Times, or whatever it is, well, now you may not be going all the way to that website, which affects how much advertising that publisher gets. So their fill rates are down. Their traffic is down, which means that their fill rates are down. That's a big, significant shift. Typically in Q1, we see a 30% decline in revenue. This year, we're seeing about a 50 to 60% decline. It's huge. And you have these smaller and mid-sized publishers that are seeing this dip, which is normal, by the way, but then you have the secondary effect of the technology. So as a company like us, we consult with these publishers and try to help them with strategies to improve their traffic, improve their fill rates, give them different techniques and tools to help them. So ultimately, they don't lose that revenue to their websites.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful, and that puts it in perspective, and I appreciate that clarification. And I've got to believe that in addition to the declining in revenue, I'm assuming that new ones are popping up on a daily basis too. If somebody's got a great idea how to share news and information, is that a true fact as well?
Well, there are new websites. There's always been a lot of long tail websites. Okay. Um, and the the challenge with that is some of these sites just pop up um, to just be they're what we call made for advertising sites. And made for advertising sites basically are just in business to make money and to get traffic and to get advertising. Well, right now, there is a company out there that's helping um, advertisers like the Nissans and the big large national advertisers because you had a lot of these made for advertising sites, lower quality long tail sites that were literally in business just to make money, not to provide good quality content, right? Um, and so those publishers are getting low scores. So you could have those sites pop up and make money, but if they really aren't providing a lot of value to a user, then it could be they're going to get low quality scores, and then the SSP partners that send the advertising, which is the Nissans, the American Airlines, the Millers of the world, to those websites to monetize those websites, they stop doing that. So unless it's really providing value, um, it's they're finding ways to block those new sites from making money or having fraud because there's a certain amount of fraud that's out there as well. Still happens, but it's trying to be minimized. And if you work, if those companies, those publishers work with a partner like us, we help them. We provide the service and the strategies, the tools, the people, the expertise to help them become a stronger publisher.
No, I appreciate that. I was a question I was going to ask, so that's helpful. So taking you said your ideal customer appears, is the smaller mid-size agencies, and so how are you guys attracting business right now? What's your strategy for that?
Well. we have a sales team that goes out and prospects for online publishers. That's one way that we go to market, where we do outbound marketing and inbound marketing, and have to do what most other businesses have to do to have this marketing strategy that makes sense to target these publishers. We also do have some technology for larger publishers, as well. We have a prediction platform, and we also have SaaS for some larger online publishers. Um, so, I mean, there's lots of different things that we do to try to go after um, business. We also go to events as well. So there's different events that are out there. Well, I mean, there's more events than you can shake a stick at, I'll just say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been a booth monkey in my life before too, where you just trying to talk as many people as you can, and that model's changed a lot too. But yeah, I mean, I think it's whatever you can do. There's components of it that get your name out there, gets your, just gets brand recognition, if nothing else, right? So,
Yeah, that's part of it too. You have to increase your brand.
so from a business perspective, so you came in the middle of last year. I noticed, and it's kind of interesting to me, is I don't say, "Hey, not hopefully not to make it an uncomfortable situation," but the business got awards in 2024, and it was something changed, and they said, "Well, we need a new CEO." What was the impetus behind that? What was the drive to bring somebody like you in to change the business? I believe.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So, the old CEO had sold the business to a larger group, which is Daytrix, which is an AI led company, and they wanted a foothold in the US. So they acquired the business, and I think there was just a normal exit. A lot of times, founders, they come in and they sell the business, and then they have an exit strategy. They don't plan on staying after. So I also think that the older CEO was not as comfortable in the AI realm of things. So they needed someone who wanted to come in and figure out how to integrate some of the other technologies into the organization. And then lastly, I do come from the buy side. So the publisher side is the sell side. I come from the advertising side. So I was the CEO for a company called Digilant, and they sold advertising, so to the Nissans and the American Airlines. And one of the things that we want to do at Adopex is to start to go out and sell direct deals for our mid-sized publishers. So before, we were basically just doing sort of the ad operation so that the publishers could focus on content. We would focus on just monetizing their website through ad operations, campaign management. But now, another thing that we're looking to do, and I'm about to launch, is we'll also go out and sell the advertising for those publishers. And what's really great is that programmatic advertising is less targeted. When you can target based off of the publisher's content and the verticals that they have, it can perform better because publishers have better data on their users rather than just doing targeting to the open web environment. So that was of interest to me. It's where I started my career. And I wanted to get back to those roots, if you will. And so I've been in the publisher space for some time and I wanted a way to get back there. So it was a really nice fit.
And I think that that's a to me it's a massive business benefit. As I have a similar background in a different way in the fact that I was an implementation consultant and then kind of morphed into sales leadership and set. So I've been on both sides of the house, and the fact that you were on both sides of the house, I got to believe brings a ton of value to conversations. It brings a believability. And are you seeing that as well?
Yes, and I'm actually excited to go out there because we've implemented a ton of new um, ways of working, new strategies, new technologies. One of the popular things that's happening in the publisher space right now is sell side decisioning. Okay. In the past, it was always buy side decisioning that was happening at the DSP partner, which is again on the buy side at the ad agencies. But now it's happening at the publishers. The publishers are adding these tools to be able to target the advertisers. And it's again performing better for those publishers. I think because these tools are very expensive, again, mid-sized publishers can't really afford to build out all of these tools and technologies to help them. We work with over 150 to 200 publishers. So if you work with a partner like us, we have the tools and technologies to help those publishers be successful, to do sell side decisioning, to do curation, to do targeting based off of what is the user reading. We can see what the user is reading, scrape the pages, and target based off of those topics. And that's an innovation that's happening with AI.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting and exciting. And as just, this talking to somebody the other day too about, AI, and previously used to say to people, hey, what have you seen in your business in the last year? And it's like now you got to say, what have you seen in the last 30 days? And what do you see in the next 60 days is the speed at which these things are moving. So, I think if
Yes.
you can be ahead of that game and not everybody wants to go and reinvent the wheel. And if you have a solution that's providing value, it sounds like a, really solid model. On the AI topic, so I'll ask you it in two different ways. Coming in June of last year, what was your first 60, 90 days like? What was your strategy? And then kind of flowing into that is what keeps you busy today. And then the third one, which is all tied together, is what outside of your product having AI components, what are you guys leveraging in the business from a day-to-day perspective from AI?
Okay, so you asked me a lot of questions. I hope I remember. I'll start with the last one first, and
Yeah.
then you can remind me. So we use Chat GPT quite a bit. I'll just say that I can get so much more done now from creating comp plans to working with my head of marketing on new blogs and that kind of thing, to coming up with business plans. uh, I mean, it really makes you as a employee more productive, sending out emails and you know different things. I used to have to work with attorneys to come up with comp plans. Now I just plug it into Chat GPT and it erases that need. Okay, so I think that I'm I you can't have AI alone. I'll just say you do need a human sort of in the loop with it, but it's really made um, the the person more productive.
I
Okay.
100% agree with that. And there's that conversation that people out there, oh, it's taking jobs away and things like that. And it's like, okay, in a way it may be, but at the same time, what it's allowing you to do and validating what you're saying is getting to the answer faster. Like, are you getting an 80% product that you have to put 20% into, tweak it and tighten it up? I believe that's where it's at, as opposed to sitting with a blank piece of paper and saying, let me think about what I need to do with a comp plan based on my last company or whatever your history is. You've got this broad range of chat GPT knowledge to be able to pull it all together. And that's my violent agreement. So the first two questions were going back to when
The
you came
third.
in, your 30, 60, 90 day, what do you typically do?
So for me, it was really important to meet with all of the team members and understand um, who they were, not only from a personal perspective, but also what was happening in the business, what they wanted to see improved, what they liked. So I met with all of the employees and I did what I call a listening tour. I also put together a leadership team. We were having daily stand ups to understand okay, what are the main business um, problems, objectives, that kind of thing. And we did that over the 30, 60, 90. We identified the priorities. There were, I would say, a good 10 to 15, and we prioritized what were the top things that we needed to do. And I'll just say the top three, and speaking internally and externally, was okay, reporting was one. And actually, that was something that at my old company, I had to redo our reporting infrastructure. So this was something that was, it's a fairly common problem within companies, especially when you have clients. They want to see the data, they want to understand it, they want to be able to pull out insights. So we're in the process of implementing a new uh, data and reporting system. Okay, so that was one of the first things that we did. We also um, we also needed to have a slightly different structure. We had some silos within the organization, which is also a fairly common problem within companies where people don't talk to each other. They don't have cross collaboration. So we had this daily stand up. We started figuring out together what the main issues were, and now we're creating pod structures for clients, and where we had client service and yield optimization, which is optimization for the publishers so they improve performance. They were sitting in two different groups, they weren't talking to one another. We're bringing them together in a pod. So now all of our clients are going to have an account manager and a yield manager. So it's been it's really something simple that we also implemented at my last organization as well. And just like a couple of small improvements, our performance has always been good for our clients. What we're just trying to do is make it better, because service is critically important for what we do. Complexity again and education is important for us because, again, it's a quickly changing environment, and our publishers really need to understand what's happening, how to adjust, what tools and technologies do they need to be successful. Then the last thing which we are looking at is agentic
Mhm.
AI for advertising. It's a new space. Um, I it's not as common on the publisher side yet, but it's starting, and where we explore all of those trends that are happening in the marketplace so that our publishers don't have to, and we can do that for them. We can help them decide if that's something that we should be doing. And so that's the latest thing that we're in exploration on. So that was sort of 30, 60, 90, and probably 120 as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I mean, I think, the novel concept of focusing on what's right for the customer is a good place to start by changing up the model. And not every business model is cookie cutter, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, so as we get close to the end of this now, if you had advice for somebody that was taking on a new CEO, or maybe even starting up a business, like what are your two or three, must do, must haves? Don't don't miss this, otherwise it's going to make it more difficult. Is there anything specific?
So I had a business plan before I came into my role. I had talked to the investors. I really tried to understand what the needs of the organization were. Okay. But then when I came in, um, I I think doing if you're a CEO and you're taking over, it's critical to do a listening tour with your the team that you're inheriting to build the trust, to really understand the needs of the internal customer. You also need to do a tour with your external customers. In the case of the company that I'm working at, Adopex, the needs were similar. But that's not always the case. When I took over in my last organization, it was really more of an internal challenge that we had to solve. So it really is dependent. Each organization has its nuances, its challenges, but you really have to get in, roll up your sleeves. I think leadership is critical. And for a smaller organization or turnaround organization like I did at this company and then the last one, leadership is critical, rolling up your sleeves, showing your team that you're not above doing anything. Okay. So I think that that's if you're taking over as CEO. If you're starting a business, which I've also done in my prior life when I was much, much younger, um, well, that's a whole different story. And you need to be prepared to not to really work hard to live the business 24/7, and to breathe it. I have taken that act like an owner mentality into my role as CEO. I also think that's important to have that, and then to have your employees also have that attitude. So everyone's rowing in the same direction, everyone's working hard, everyone is on the same boat, rowing in the same direction towards that common goal.
Yeah, no, that's appreciated. And I think maybe bring it home and validate what you're saying. One of the things that I learned and from one of the best bosses that I had that I've actually taken forward is the first question they asked me is, how do you like to be managed? And it was kind of this weird thing to say. And it's like there's the version of somebody who says, you need to call me in the morning, tell me what to do, and then call me at the end of the day, check that I did it, and tell me I did a good job. And then there's other people who go, leave me alone, I'll call you when I need you. And it's really important to know so that you know how to interact with the employees, because if you treat everybody the same, it it doesn't work. And that whole thing about acting like you're the owner, I mean, I always know when in smaller companies where I've worked before is I would never book the most expensive flight. I would find, just spending the money like it's your own money. I think it's a really valuable business trait.
That's very important because I don't think a lot of people understand how to run a business, that you have to operate within that P&L. that you have to run it like your household, right? You can't spend more than you're taking in. So I do think that that's been a valuable lesson. And I try to be as transparent as possible as well. I think that that's another key because if you don't let your team understand what's happening and explain things and educate them, I also believe that that's something that's critically important.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with everything. Well, this was incredibly enlightening. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm looking forward to getting this published so that everybody can see it. And I really appreciate you being on today.
Thank you so much, Greg. I really enjoyed it, and thank you.